So I, for a number of years, have been very, very critical of the way that, especially the right wing, has treated at least relations with China, not just done by politicians here in the UK, but especially in the US. And this is the whole idea that essentially you can just put China in a box and it'll go away. That you can get it out every so often and play with it a bit, but you can just put it back in its box and just go away. Um, that's how I've always sort of seen those types of relationships sort of come across, as well as they've been expressed by the right. And basically, we are in a moment of where the right is saying, okay, it's time to put China back in its box and put it away for a time being until we're ready to play with it again. But that is not how I believe really we should be approaching relations with China. Now, it is absolutely true that China is doing a lot of things wrong. Of course, commitment to sort of human rights, what's going on in Jiangxing with the Uyghur Muslim population, Hong Kong, what's going on there. We should absolutely, I think, as a as almost as is internally, even though technically colonialism, etc. I do feel that we made promises to the people of Hong Kong when that handover happened to ensure that it remained very much an open democratic society in Hong Kong. And I do feel that China has very, very much diminished that to a point where there is no freedom of speech or anything like that that it was available once in Hong Kong. And you can see that to this day, where we have a lot of expats from Hong Kong who are, fleeing to live here because they do not see a future for themselves in Hong Kong, that they cannot live under that, communist government. So I absolutely believe Lammy does need to say, hey, Xi, we ain't happy about that, But at the same time, we should also recognize the fact that China on a world stage has a lot of power, has a lot of soft power, definitely has a lot of economic power, and that is something that we should respect. So approaching relations with China should be very, very much be done in a way that is both, we do not like the fact that these things are going on. We will happily call these things out to your face. But if you improve these situations, if you do things about that, then maybe there are economic stuff we can talk about, we can discuss if you improve those situations. But until that happens, anything economic things is going to be very, very, very much constrained. And already you have seen a lot of the right wing economic, well, at least the right wing foreign policy lot weigh in saying, oh, you don't understand. Labour is just going to roll over for China. They're just going to let China just do whatever they want. But I do not believe that is going to be the case. Lammy has been very, very clear, talking about what he believes, very, very much continuing on from the David Blunkett era, almost a a liberal foreign policy, idea that respects international rules, laws, and regulations, and challenging countries where they believe that they are clearly doing wrong, as is in the case of China here. And we actually have, there was a letter, and I haven't been able to find the full letter that's been sent to David Lammy, which is really annoying. But
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
nope. Anyway, just my Amazon figure off there, but never mind. Anyway, so yeah, there has been a letter sent to David Lammy because he's going on this trip to China by a group of MPs. So I'm going to sort of pick out what's being at least reported on this. So this said that Lammy, of course, must engage with China as it really is under the leadership of Xi Jinping. So I do believe that. Treat China as it really is, not what it ought to be or what it should be, but as it is. The letter also continues to say that Beijing is, of course, testing the UK's resolve and it's seeking to at least establish new parameters for engagement. That's very true as well. I think they are wanting to see what this new government is about. Will it put sanctions on it? Because something that China is very, very worried about. All of a sudden, if one country does sanctions on it, may other countries follow. Um, there are, I do believe, again, good reasons for all the human rights stuff and violations, the Hong Kong, etc. Stuff in again going on in Taiwan at the moment. The fact that it's performing these big, military blockade drills in and around Taiwan at the moment should be looked at and still said, well, if you continue to do this, you're going to leave us with no option. And of course, China is very, very terrified of sanctions like that because they've seen what could happen. But the letter also goes on to say the economic impacts of what would happen over a conflict of Taiwan. So they have said that they would project a $10 trillion impact over the conflict of Taiwan to the global economy would be absolutely intolerable and will be catastrophic for China's standing in the world. Taiwan, which has never been ruled by the People's Republic of China and has grown now increasingly opposed to Beijing's claims of sovereignty over it. And these, of course, fears that China will eventually try to annex the island by force. So this is something that has been constant and should be brought up. I mean, the fact that they said here, look, if China do go ahead with this, it would cost the world economy $10 trillion. I mean, we saw the economic fallout of what happened with Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Like, we saw the economic shocks, but if China actually invaded Taiwan, there would be massive, massive economic shocks around the world. And there is already, you know, calls, and I think they are quite right to call this out, that currently Starmer is living in this British bubble. That so far, there haven't been too many big or crazy shocks that we've seen recently, such as the pandemic or the invasion of Ukraine, that have caused this bubble to pop or any economic pressure. So currently, at the moment, Starmer is all right, but eventually that bubble will burst, and he should absolutely prepare quite rightly, I think, for that eventuality. But he is living currently in that bubble, and that happens with most countries. This isn't an unusual criticism to see sort of thrown at ruling parties, ruling governments. Well, what happens if outside economic forces happen? That is very likelihood to happen. What if Donald Trump wins? How do we do that? What does that mean? Again, so ultimately, I do like the fact Lammy is going to China. I do like the fact that Rachel Reeves will also be going to China as well. But we should also, as I said, I think quite rightly, as that letter says, even though it does come from what I think of the right-wing people who do look at China as if they can just put it in a box and move it out of the way. I do think that what that letter said, that you should treat China as it is, I think is very right. I think it is right. And bear in mind, not all the right-wing commentators on foreign policy are like that. Just unfortunately, there are a lot tend to be the loudest are sort of seem to treat China as like some sort of plaything that they can take in and out of a box whenever they ever just happen to like. But there you go. So anyway, let me know what you think down below. What do you think to Lammy's trip? Do you think Rachel Reeves' follow-up trip is deserved? Should that be cancelled? Should it be conditional on the stuff in the Taiwan Straits? I don't think Rachel Reeves should go there if that is currently continuing. I think she just go, well, as long as that's happening, we ain't coming to talk to you. That's, I think, quite fine. And I think that is how we should play. If China is going to do these military drills, then quite frankly, Lammy should say, well, if those aren't stopped, Reeves ain't coming to sort of talk economic stuff with you. So I think that is definitely a good play that Lammy could have. And I do believe he should absolutely raise human rights concerns on his Chinese trip. So, as always, let me know what you think down below. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.